Okay, much better. So as a start, this is a good introduction. This is a map that was published by Sexton et al. In 2015, and it basically shows the global forest cover. And they analyzed 8 different global forest cover products, and as you can see, the black color is where all 8 products agree that there is no forest, and green means that all 8 products agree that there is forest. So basically what this map is showing is that we have no idea how much forest there is actually on the earth. And that's quite a bit of a problem, I'd say, because lots of large-scale national and international decisions and policies are being made about the results of analysis of such products. So a little bit to my motivation of why I chose to do this as my master thesis. Global land cover is one of the key variables that is needed to understand our world and to make policies and decisions about the future of where we want to go. But as the map showed, there is a high degree of disagreement between individual products. And datasets such as the GLC 2000, MODIS, and GlobeCover, those are like the more famous land cover products, they frequently disagree about what is where on the Earth. So you might know Linda C, and in a paper she wrote, there is currently a lack of in-situ environmental data for the calibration and validation of remotely sensed products. But she also mentioned that crowdsourcing is a potentially powerful tool to increase the supply of in-situ data. And to go even further, Fritz et al. Mentioned that competitive games, such as those used for the most computer games, could be implemented to make this challenge of getting in-situ data and land cover validation more attractive to non-expert users. So that was a bit of my short motivational talk of why I chose to do this thesis. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of the art. So the current literature basically agrees that the published accuracy of land cover products is somewhere between 68 and 75%, which if you think about it, it's not that high. And as I've already mentioned, there are large disagreements between the products, and the majority of these disagreements between the products are due to incorrect classifications. And if you thought the first map was, I think this map is mind-boggling, because if you look at this map, the salmon color is where different products disagree on what is there on the Earth. So as you can see, a large portion of the landmass of our Earth, the different products disagree actually what is there. And so how can you make policies or decisions if you don't actually accurately know what is where? So I want to address this. Now to the crowdsourcing. The literature agrees that the overall quality of crowdsourced data is relatively high, and the differences between experts and non-experts are pretty small. So they found out that non-expert users like you and me, we tend to start off with a lower accuracy in classifying land cover than expert users. But as we got used to like how the classification process works and what to classify as what class, we tend to get better. And at the end of the test period, they found out that non-expert users had the same accuracy or even higher accuracy than expert users. It means that non-experts can be quite valuable to gather data about the Earth. And last but not least, location-based games. There has been quite a bit of literature to location-based games. I'll show you more later. And the literature agrees that you can collect large amounts of spatial data by using these location-based games. You can also use location-based games for data verification and curation purposes. And it was also mentioned that you can use the positive effects on motivation in games by using competitive elements and fantasy elements. And so going away from the monetary incentives for people to help you, you introduce fantasy and competitive elements, and this will engage the user. Well, what do I mean by fantasy? Does this have to do with like elves and Lord of the Rings? No, it's just, it means like the story behind a game. And you might know Ingress, it's one of the most famous location-based games, maybe except for Pokemon Go, but Ingress started off as just a website with this old school kind of pinwall. And there were little bits of information snippets on this pinwall, and each day new information would be added to the pinwall. And so the users would come back every day and look at the new information, and this information would eventually tie together to form a coherent story. And not only that, but the information that was posted on the website had things like this poster. And the users started to build communities to try and find out, what does this mean? This message at the bottom, you might not see it, but there's a message at the bottom which is encrypted. And they started getting together to try and decrypt this message, and they got this whole community engaged in their game. That was the fantasy part. And the competitive part is, of course, you have to choose a team at the start after you register. And then these teams are basically in a never-ending conflict. If you join and you choose your team, everything you do in the game, you will try to help your team and try to slow down the progress of the other team. So this is kind of the competitive element of a game. And if I'm talking too fast, just say something, or if you have a question, you can just raise your hand. So the literature agrees, basically, to sum up, that location-based games can generate large amounts of spatial data, but the usability of this data generated is highly dependent on the number of and distribution of the users and how much they pay. So I said there has been quite a bit of literature and research done about location-based games for geographic information mining, and I distilled the papers that I found, the games that were already researched on, into this list. And what I found is that basically this column and this column, all the games are quite similar in those two respects. So the first column was the data type. Most of the games, they focus on point of interest collection, points in the world, not areas or polygons, points. And the second part was that none of the games which were implemented in the scientific literature to collect data, none of them had a bigger backstory, and some of them didn't have a story at all. To be fair, some of them used monetary incentives, and maybe they thought they didn't need a story. So out of this reading that I did, I distilled this down to the research gap I want to fill. So to my knowledge, no research has been done in implementing a location-based game focusing on land cover data collection. No research has been done on location-based games for tile-based information collection. As I said, most of them focus on points of interest. And the narrative or the fantasy or the story or the lore, however you want to call it, has not been of much importance. So basically, I formulated two research questions. First, how can I make a game which engages users to collect land cover data without necessarily using monetary incentives? This is like the first part of my master project. And the second part is, how can this generated data, land cover data and semantic data, be used in a research context? So the main goal, as you can probably figure by now is the development, implementation, and assessment, and the analysis of the data generated by a game which I implement. So that was a bit of the a short rundown of the scientific context. And at the start of my work, I thought, well, do I know of any games which have land cover data in like the middle of the game as a core element of the game? And the first thing that came to mind was this board game, Settlers of Catan. Maybe you know it. I used to play it a lot as a little kid. So basically, you have a board made up of tiles with different land cover types, and you will get resources and you can build stuff. And I thought that that's a great basis for a game to collect land cover data. If I could take the fundamental idea of this and make a location-based game out of this, that would be good. So I started programming and learning, and this is what I've done so far. So this is where I am at the moment. I have created a game. I named it Starborn, with a fantasy kind of futuristic space theme. And maybe you're asking why. Well, this year and last year, there was a lot of hype around major million-dollar games which are coming out all around the space theme. And I thought, well, I'll just jump on the hype train because it seems to be popular at the moment. So if you go to the game, the first thing you'll see is this homepage, kind of starting landing page, where you can log in, you can register, you can read the story, and you can see a list of the ranking of all the players in the game up till now. So you can read the story. It's just something I made up. And basically, with the story, I want to like create this kind of backstory of the game, not just to have people walking around with a survey, basically. So you have this backstory. Then you can go to the registration form, you can register, and then you can make your own character. And on the right, you can see various different characters which people have made in my game already. And I think it's quite fun. And the scientific literature also says that character making is essential for the user to kind of identify him or herself more with the game and come back more. So I hope that's a once you've made your character, you can choose a team, blue or red, or blue or orangey red. And then you come to this main part of the game, which is, of course, a map, and you can see different tiles. So you play from the browser, and you have to have your GPS on because I want to collect in situ data, basically. And you can see this map. Down here you have your level, menu button, and the experience points you have and how much is missing for the next level. And you can see your character here, or the symbol of your character in the color of the team you chose. Then you can interact with the tile. These are tiles. You can interact with the tiles you are currently standing in, or where your GPS thinks you are standing in, because of GPS inaccuracy and all that. And so you can interact with this tile, and if you click on this tile, if it has never been captured, if it doesn't belong to any team, you can capture it. And you are presented with this kind of interface. You can click here for information, or you can capture it with this flag. And then you are brought to this survey, and that is like the core part. That is where I collect the land cover information the users think that is there, where they are standing. So in this capture interface, you can say all the different types. You can click on multiple things and you can say what you are standing in. If it's urban, maybe there's a river going through, so you also click on water body. And the whole game around it is to make like this one survey, this one kind of options list more interesting. if you're standing in a area, in a tile that belongs to your team, you can click on this little symbol of a building. It should be a building, but it was pointed out to me that some people think it's a smartphone, and so I might have to change that. You can click on this building, and then you are presented with a build interface where you can build like buildings and shields and stuff onto the area. So it's harder for other users to kind of capture that area. And last but not least, if you're standing in an area of a enemy team, of course you can then attack his buildings, and if you succeed in destroying all his or her buildings, then you can capture this area for your team, for yourself. And yeah, so basically you can capture areas which have not been captured. If you capture an area, you get resources. These resources you can spend on buying buildings, and then you can build on areas which belong to your team, and you can attack areas which belong to the other team. So this is just the technical implementation part. I won't go into detail, no worries. If you're interested, you can just come to me or ask me or write me a mail or something like that. So basically just on your mobile phone, it communicates with my server, which communicates with my databases, and this all sends the information back to your phone. So that's like in a nutshell what happens, but yeah, you can. So up till now, I released this 1 week ago, about exactly 1 week ago, and the game at the moment, as of today, has more than 68,000 lines of code, 51 registered users, of which 27 have captured at least one tile. Most of these users I do not know. I have no idea who these people are. And as of, I think, about an hour ago, the 1,000 tile mark was broken. So there have been more than 1,000 tiles which have been collected already in this week, which is equivalent to more than 400,000 meters squared of classified land cover. So that was what I've done up till now. And now what I will do is, with the data that I collected, I want to analyze it, analyze the user contribution data distribution, both temporally and spatially, of course. Then I want to assess how accurate the users contribute. And then last but not least, assess the quality of existing land cover products and see if I can improve them, or if my data is even viable to do some improvements or to make some kind of statements of hello. So there are a few limitations, but if you're interested in those, I can happily give you a feedback later. And now, basically, what would be great if you could do, I know it may be asking a lot, but if you could register for my game and play for the next 2 weeks, or just have a look and just go have a look at the game. And then in 2 weeks' time, I'll come back, and I'm mainly interested in two big questions of what would make you play the game more, and what discourages you from wanting to play. And basically, I'd be very glad if you could just be honest, because, well, a bad feedback which is honest is much more, well, it helps me more than a good feedback which is dishonest. So if you just hate games, just tell me, and yeah. But it would be great if you could have a go at it, and maybe if you like it, share it with your friends and whatever. And I've also created a Google Plus community where I started posting kind of updates, and people can, if they find bugs or something that doesn't work, or if they have ideas, they can post it there. And yeah, it has only 8 members at the moment, but well, it's a start. I'm already at references. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or ideas, or yeah, just if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And thanks for listening, basically.